Welcome back to the channel, RacerX here, and today I want to talk a little bit about my Hellion Twin Turbo Sleeper Mustang. I've been driving this bad boy now for 6-7 months, well over a half year, and my whole purpose in building this car was to show that you could daily drive a car that makes this much power, but it hasn't gone without its little snafus, so to speak, and there's a few things to talk about, both good and bad. So today I want to give you my 6-month review on driving this beast, and it should be a fun one. Also, if you're new to my channel, please do me a huge favor. Please hit subscribe right down there in the corner. Only about 22% of you guys are subscribed to my channel, and I would really appreciate it. Lots of great stuff coming up this year, and here we go.
T-minus 15 seconds.
So first and foremost, one of the first things I want to talk about this car, and a huge shout out to my buddies down there at Gearheads Automotive in Mansfield, because they're actually the ones who did the build on this. So not only am I super appreciative of all the hard work and extra attention to detail that they put into this car, but obviously my sponsor Hellion Turbo Systems for helping me get this awesome kit on this car. But take a look at this thing. I mean, it looks bone stock, basically. I mean, that was done. The actual Hellion kit itself, the sleeper kit, doesn't quite have all the little features that you see here. It's not quite this hidden, but even if you know what you're looking at, and you're used to looking at Coyote engines, you really cannot tell that anything has really been done to this. A lot of things to kind of hide all the components of the turbos on this, and of course they are undermounted. And even as you look through the grill here, we've kind of basically tied up that intercooler so that you can't really tell that it's there. It's got some black accents on it and stuff like that. So a true sleeper kit here. And just by looking at the car, you would never know cruising next to this that it packs the power that it does. And that makes this thing a whole bunch of fun, because when you get somebody in, say, a ZL1 or a Hellcat or some unsuspecting guy rolling along in his Ferrari, you can absolutely ruin his day and leave the guy leaving with, you know, maybe looking for his return paperwork for that car. But this car is a ton of fun to drive. I've really enjoyed it. So I want to talk about some of the pitfalls of this. Now, one of the major frustrations I have with driving this car every day is obviously you don't get sunshine and blue skies every day. It's actually a gorgeous day outside here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but unfortunately, I'm always switching the tires back and forth. Right now, as you can see, I've got little stalkers on the back because the other day it was raining and I just haven't changed it back over to the big tires, and I still have the front runners on the front. I just kind of got lazy, and you do get tired of changing the tires out on this all the time, but I want to kind of explain why that is. Obviously, as much power as this makes, to be able to plant the power with any sort of efficiency, you need the big ET Street R's on the back, the 17-inch wheels. Those are my welds, and I typically do like to run that setup basically all of the time. And people say, well, RacerX, why don't you get some other wheels with, say, a 20-inch Nitto or a 20-inch Mickey Thompson ET Street? Well, I actually tried to do that very thing, and unfortunately, I ordered these Ferratas. I paid a bunch of money for them, and they looked fantastic on the car, but they stuck out. For some odd reason, I worked with my sponsor, but they stuck out really far from the fender, like almost a full inch and a half, and for some reason, the car would come down on top of the tire, and I literally could not run those wheels and those tires. So it's super frustrating, because that's really what I want to be able to run all the time on the car, but they literally don't fit. And I've talked to my wheel sponsor, and they say, well, they should, but it just doesn't fit. So I don't know if that's a function of the Viking shocks that I have on the car, or those wheels just were not cut to the right specification. But basically, all I do right now is switch the tires back and forth all the time, depending on what the weather's doing, and that is pretty frustrating. So here is also another thing to consider if you're looking at a Mustang GT, and just a Mustang GT in general. These things, even though they say they're 5 liters in displacement, dual overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, all that good stuff, that's why they breathe so great on the top end. Oil changes on these things cost a lot of money. I actually run AMSOIL 5W50 in this, which is pretty hard to find, but really good for turbo cars. But at $13 a quart, that starts to add up, because it, like I said, it takes over 10 quarts of oil to do an oil change on one of these. And when you run a turbo car, you have to change the oil more often. So I'm spending a lot of money just on oil for this car. So that's one thing. So something else to consider, this car is on full E85. That helps this car reach its potential, make basically 900 rear-wheel horsepower at only like 12.5 pounds of boost. It is very impressive what this thing can do. Those twin 64mm turbos under there are just nasty. But at the end of the day, you know, the fuel prices being what they are, we've seen huge increases in fuel prices. Just released a video about this the other day. But I'm spending an absolute ton because I do have the 4 Innovations triple pump system on this. That's what the car needs because I wanted to be able to turn it up later and make big horsepower. So for that horsepower level, maybe I didn't need quite that much, but like I said, I kind of intended, I didn't want to do it again. So I did it right the first time, but I eat through fuel. On E85, you eat through more fuel anyway. I absolutely go through tons of fuel, and E85 right now is like $4.15 a gallon or something like that, and it fluctuates some. In some places, you're a lot worse off just going with 93, but I burn through a ton of fuel, and I just spend a ton of money on fuel right now because of the system, the way it's set up. If you daily drive something like this, you got to make sure you've got a lot of money in the budget for fuel because it is not cheap. Now, one of the best things about this twin turbo Mustang is the fact that it has an Eboost controller, which is really why I went with this build in the first place. So you can see this gorgeous carbon fiber steering wheel that Dyna Performance sent me. I love that as well. But this is really the main reason. This is power on demand. So basically all I have to do is just click this button right here, and then I'm adding power. So the base setting for this car is right around 5.5 pounds, which gives me somewhere around 650, 660 wheel. That's as low as I can turn this down. But with just one click of a button, now we're making 10 pounds. That's how I have this thing configured. And now we're at like 800 wheel, click it again, and we're at 860, click it again. We're basically at 900 wheel horsepower. And I can keep going up from there if my engine and my trans would hold. I don't put it any higher than that just because obviously I feel like it would endanger the trans or the engine, but certainly these turbos are capable of flowing like 28 pounds, which is just an insane amount of power. But if I have the small tires on the back, turn it all the way down. Big tires on the back, I can turn it up basically as high as I have it configured. That is just something amazing about this twin turbo setup from Hellion. Another thing that I absolutely love about this car is the sound that it makes. So once again, huge shout out to my sponsors over at Magnaflow, because this is their Bad Daddy X Mod exhaust that they sent me. You guys may have seen on my channel where I put this on the car even before the twin turbo system was in. I mean, just a fantastic sound that comes out of the back of this Magnaflow. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and start it for you just really quick. It sounds so good, even at idle, and when it really wakes up, when you're really getting on it, it sounds really mean. I absolutely love the sound of this car. Now, one of the things I obviously need to mention really quick is the fact that going from a Hellcat to a Mustang, if you have more than one passenger, the Mustang is really small in the back, and that's the case with any of the Mustangs. So it's not just on this Bad Daddy twin turbo car, but if you're looking to go into a Mustang, just keep in mind the back seats on this, they are really small. So if you're taller than about 5'6", you're going to be pretty uncomfortable in the back of this thing. So food for thought. One of the other things I do want to mention is the fact that this car took a little while to learn how to drive the right way. The turbos, they make power in such a different way than a supercharged car. The Hellcat is a pretty easy power curve for me to learn. It's just a gob of torque right up front, but it's very predictable power. This thing, the turbos just take a minute to come alive, and when they do, they're basically just trying to suck your eyeballs to the back of your head, and it's just a different way to drive, and you really have to kind of learn RPMs in this car. This being a 10-speed car, you've got to learn where the car really likes to boost. You got to learn the right RPM for the right gear. There's a bit of a learning curve to these 10-speed twin turbo cars, and I'm still kind of learning it a little bit, like at the drag strip. It is a little bit frustrating that the car does not come out of the hole because it is on a stock converter. I'm not activated with a two-step or anything like that. So, the car is still sluggish out of the hole, and then the turbos come on, and it's like, wow, big time. So that is another little thing that I'm trying to adjust to and get used to. But for everyday driving, obviously on the highway, a lot of times if you want to really get on it, you have to downshift like 5 times to get it in the right RPM, because this thing likes to leave at like 5,500 or 6,000 RPMs. That's kind of the sweet spot where you don't have a lot of turbo lag in this car. So as I said, you got to kind of get used to the way this thing drives. So still trying to get it figured out. Also, because of the build, I've had a few little issues here and there. A lot of you guys have seen my video. I had a little bit of an oil leak because the turbos are undermounted. They do kind of sit fairly low. Kind of had a spot where I scrape real hard, but I do run around with these front runners on there, which kind of lower the car a little bit. So maybe part of that's my fault as well. But with any build like this, you're going to have your growing pains. It's just part of it. My Hellcat was no different. So, you know, we've had a little bit of, you know, things here and there that just kind of overcome. You know, had a few trips down there to Gearhead so they could kind of look at things, diagnose, make sure the car was happy, make sure it was healthy. But it really is a fantastic and fun car to drive. Now, another little slight drawback to this particular car is the fact that it's pretty loud in the cabin. So if you like peace and quiet, this is not the car for you. I mean, I do have aftermarket axles on this car. I've got an aftermarket drive shaft, cradle lockout kit, a lot of kind of stuff going on with the suspension of this and the drivetrain to keep it livable. You can hear how loud that axle is back there singing. It does make a lot of noise. So you just have to be aware that this thing it's not a race car, but it has a lot of race car bits on it. And yeah, it's not a quiet cabin whatsoever. Just a lot of different noises to think about. Now, the guys over at Palm Beach Dyno are actually the guys responsible for the tune in this car. And one of the things I absolutely love about this car is the way they have it downshifting. And not only does it go like crazy when the turbos come in, but when it downshifts, even just like in sport mode, like I have it now, man, it downshifts really aggressively and makes just this insane sound. I actually have a little spot here. I want to kind of show you how it sounds. All right, well, take a quick listen to this. Well, and there you have it. That is kind of my 6-month review of the Hellion Twin Turbo Mustang. I really do enjoy this car, guys. I know going from a Mopar to a Mustang is kind of different. I wanted to do something just a little bit different to see how it was going, but the car really hasn't let me down. It's been a great car, and it's been fantastic. The fact that I could just turn the power up or down when I needed to. Obviously, the tire thing, I'm still trying to get sorted, and a few other little things, but as with any car that makes this kind of power, typically, like I said, you're going to have your little bit of growing pains and things here or there, but like I said, other than the fuel and all that kind of stuff, which costs me a ton, the car really does make a pretty darn good daily driving car. So I've been real pleased with it. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think about it in the comments down below, and I'll catch you on the next one. So until then, RacerX.